نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. So, Alhamdulillah, we have been covering the issues of zakat. In the first classes, we covered the virtues and the effects, the benefits of giving zakat, giving charity. And then in the previous session, we covered that what are the restrictions in a person which needs to be found to make him liable to give zakat. We covered those, and then we were covering the restrictions and the conditions needs to be there in the wealth, in the wealth. After those conditions, zakat is going to be obligatory on that wealth. So we were covering that. So I said that there are 6 conditions needs to be there. One of them is the wealth has to be a business merchandise. If it's not a business merchandise, then it has to be either gold or silver or cash or the cattle, the animals a person possesses. If the wealth is none of these things, then there is no zakat upon it. There is no zakat obligatory on it. The second restriction was that the wealth has to be legal. If it's an illegal wealth, if it has been earned from an haram source, from an illegal source, let's say a person takes someone's wealth forcefully, or he snatches away from him, or he steals from him, or the wealth is earned by bribe, all of these illegal ways, haram, prohibited ways, on that wealth there is no zakat, because zakat has to be, there is a detail in it, we are going to cover it today inshallah. So that is the second restriction. The zakat has to be earned legally with an halal permissible source. Third thing is that after the wealth has to be in his ownership. The commodity the person has, the wealth the person has to be in his ownership. He needs to own it. So a person, let's say a person gives a person a commodity as a trust. So this person has it, but he doesn't own it. He has a trust from someone. So amanat, a person who is keeping an amanat, who is keeping a trust from someone, he is not obliged to pay zakat on it because he has it, but he doesn't own it. Number 4 is that a person is able to make transaction on it. He is able to use it. He is able to use it. If he is not able to use it, still there is no zakat upon it. Let's say a person has some wealth, but he has hid it somewhere and he is not able to find it, or he has lost it. So, or he has given someone, given to someone and he is not able to take it back. So, although he owns it, or it will be considered that he has it, but still, if he is not able to use it, there will be no zakat upon it. So, number 5 was that wealth, that commodity has to reach the amount of nisab, which we covered in the last session, that according to silver, the amount on which zakat becomes obligatory is between $250 to $300. and according to gold, the amount of nisab on which zakat becomes obligatory is around $4,000 to $4,500. So whatever commodity a person has to reach this amount in order for zakat to become obligatory upon him. Number 6 is that the commodity a person has, he has to have it for the whole lunar year. One whole lunar year has to pass on it. So these are the 6 conditions needs to be found in order for zakat to become compulsory upon a person. 6 conditions. Either it's a merchandise, business merchandise. If it's not a business merchandise, then gold, silver, or cash. Number 2, earned within halal source, permissible source. Number 3, it has to be in his ownership. Number 4, he should be able to use it. Number 5, it has to reach the amount of nisab of either gold or silver. Number 6, it has to be with him for the whole lunar year. One lunar year has to pass upon it. Now these are the 6 restrictions which needs to be found in one's wealth, in one's commodity, in order for zakat to become compulsory. Now we covered the first restriction, first condition in detail, that how we are going to consider a commodity, one's wealth, one's belongings as a business merchandise. So we covered that there are 4 restrictions needs to be found in order for something to be declared as a business merchandise. Number 1 out of those 4 is that a person has to buy it. When he has bought it, he had the intention of selling it. So a commodity which a person has bought it with the intention of selling it, it is going to be considered as a business merchandise. Now, in that there was some detail also that we covered last time, that niyat is going to be, his intention is going to be considered as niyat when he brings that commodity into his ownership with his own action. Let's say he goes and he makes a transaction. So if something comes into his ownership without his own action, let's say somebody a heir or inheritor inherits something, so a piece of wealth has come into his ownership, but it has come without his ownership, without his action. That's why if in that, let's say a person's father owns a house, and the father dies, and then this house comes into the son's ownership. Now even the son makes an intention to sell this house, still is not going to be considered as a business merchandise, because this house has not come into his ownership with his own action. That's the first, that is the restriction in the restriction of having intention of selling it. Now, and then we covered that a person has to pay something behalf of it, pay something in the lieu of it, against it, right? Like for a business merchandise to be considered as business merchandise, a person has to buy it in lieu of something. He has to pay the price for it. That is the second restriction. And then we covered that that intention has to be there at the time of buying it, and then that intention has to be firm intention, not a doubtful intention. These are the restrictions we covered. And then we covered the second restriction was that the intention has to stay so for the whole year. Let's say I bought something and with the intention of selling it, but later on I change my intention. I change my intention that I'm going to keep it for myself. I'm not going to sell it. So that commodity is still is not going to be considered as a business merchandise. Now, and then we said for the third restriction is that on that business merchandise a whole lunar year also has to cross, also has to pass. Number 4 is that business merchandise which I have bought it with the intention of selling it, and I kept the intention for the whole year, and the one whole year passes by, and then after all of that, the last restriction in order for zakat to become compulsory on a business merchandise is that it has to reach the value of the nisab. It has to reach the amount of the nisab. So let's say I bought something to sell it, and I still have the niyat to sell it, and the whole year also passes by, but the value of that commodity doesn't reach the amount of nisab. It's not equal to $250, or right. So if it's not reaching the nisab, then there will be no zakat, even though the whole year passes by. So this is what we have covered in last session. Now there are some details which is related to these restrictions. We're going to cover them quickly. One of the issues is that a person, let's say he has business merchandise, but his business merchandise doesn't reaches the amount of nisab, but at the same time he has some gold and silver, and he has some cash with it also. So now we're going to add all of these things together. If after adding all of these things together, the value of these things reaches the amount of nisab, then there will be zakat. So if a person only has business merchandise and he doesn't have any gold or silver or anything like that, or any cash with him, so then there will be no zakat. But if a person after having the business merchandise and he has cash and gold and silver also, and all of that reaches the amount of nisab, then there will be zakat. Now, when a person has business merchandise and he wants to pay zakat on it, how he is going to evaluate it? What value he is going to consider in order to calculate his zakat? So let's say a commodity I think I bought for $200, but the market price of that is $300. So I'm going to calculate zakat with the value of market price, not the price on which I have bought it. This is another restriction, another detail in it. So one is the price on which I have bought it, and one is the buying price, and one is the market price. So the market price is going to be used in the calculation of zakat. So if a person he calculates his zakat, and he keeps the value of, he considers that amount which he has paid for his for when he bought it. So, and if a person pays zakat, so his zakat is not going to be fulfilled. He has to reevaluate again with the market price, and whatever zakat he has paid, he has to deduct that, and whatever extra is remaining, he has to pay it again. So this is one of the things. Now, sometimes there are a lot of different situations. So the business merchandise a person has, it has a different market price in different markets. So which market price he is going to calculate. And sometimes a person sells something as a wholesale, and sometimes a person sells something as a retail price. So which price he is going to consider, retail price or the wholesale price? So what retail has, what ulama has written, that in whichever market the commodity is in, the business merchandise is in, that market's price is going to be considered. So if a person lives in Utah and he does business in Utah, and the the merchandise he has a different price in Utah and different price in another state, so he's not going to consider the market price of another state. He's going to calculate with the market price of Utah. And then if a person, this businessman, he sells his business merchandise as a wholesale, then he's going to consider the wholesale price. If he is selling it as a retail, then he's going to be considering as the retail price. But there are also some businessmen who in the same shop they sell as a wholesale to some customers. They give them a wholesale price. To some customers they give them retail price. So which price he's going to consider then? Then ulama has written that a person has to see what is the most transactions are the most transaction in the most of his transaction he uses, he deals in the most of the transactions with the wholesale price, then he is going to be considering the wholesale price. If most of the transactions are done with the retail price, then he has to consider the retail price. It's very easy. So it's not about where the businessman lives, it's about where the business is. So if, let's say, a person lives in another state and his business is in another state, so it doesn't mean that the person where he lives, he is going to consider the market price of the living where he is residing in. No, where the business is, the market price is going to be considered of that market where the business where he owns the business. That is one thing. Now after that, now this was the detail about the business merchandise. Now we have I said in the first restriction that either it has to be business merchandise or it has to be gold or silver or some cash. Now we're going to move on to gold. What is the detail in gold? Now all kinds of gold, zakat becomes compulsory upon it. All kinds of, either it is formed into jewelry, there is zakat. If it's not formed into jewelry, but it's in the bricks form, then still there is zakat. So no matter what form it is, there is zakat obligatory on gold. Now one of the situation is that a person has gold, but it is mixed with other things. It is mixed with something else. So now is there going to be zakat on it or not? So what ulama has written is what is the most amount? The hukum depends on the most amount. So let's say zakat is mixed with metal or it's mixed with steel. So we are going to see if gold is more than metal or metal is more than gold. If the gold is more than metal, then the whole entire thing is going to be considered as gold, and it has to be calculated in the zakat. If the metal is more than the gold, if more than half is metal, then it's going to be considered, the whole thing is going to be considered as metal, and there will be no zakat. This is what, unless if it's a business merchandise. So let's say a person has bought this mixed gold with metal for his own use, then this is the hukum. We will see what is the most amount. So the most amount is gold, then it's going to be considered as gold. Whole thing is going to be considered as gold, and there will be zakat. If it's metal, more than half is metal, then whole thing is going to be considered as metal, and there will be no zakat. Okay. Same thing works with the silver, that a person has bought something, bought a jewelry, let's say, and it is mixed with gold and silver. So the same ruling will be applied. If the silver is more than gold, then the whole thing is going to be considered as silver. If the gold is more, then the whole thing is going to be considered as gold. So this is how the zakat is going to be considered in the gold. Now, the second thing was, after that, cash amount a person has. Before the cash amount, one more thing. Now, this is very interesting. Let's say a person has gold in a jewelry form. So now, is he going to evaluate the price of the jewelry only with the amount of gold, or the jewelry itself? Let's say when a person buys the bricks of gold, it has a different price. But when he goes to the market and he wants to form it into a jewelry set, then the price is different, right? So the labor of forming it into a jewelry set also has a price. So the person, which price he is going to consider in evaluating for zakat? Adding the labor of forming into jewelry, or just the pure gold price? So this person who owns it for his own use, for, let's say, our women folks, they have so many jewelry sets, so they are not going to consider the price of gold only. They are going to consider the price of the set, the jewelry set. They have to consider that price in order to calculate the zakat. But let's say a person who owns the jewelry shop, and he has a business of gold. This person, he's not gonna consider the jewelry set price. He's gonna consider the gold price only. This is the difference between the one who owns it for himself and the one who wants to sell it. Same thing is one another issue related to it is, there are some people who use body parts, of body parts of gold or silver. So what is the hukum of it? Let's say a person installs a teeth of gold or teeth of silver. Now, is there going to be zakat on it or not? So what ulama has written is that if it's permanent, is not, and that gold or silver which is installed as a teeth, if it's permanent and is non-removable, if he is not able to remove it, then there will be no zakat on it. But if it's removable, he can remove it whenever he wants, then there will be zakat on it. This is the hukum of that body part which is made out of gold or silver. Now, same thing goes with the silver also. If silver is mixed, then we will see what is the most amount. The most amount, if it's metal, then it's going to be considered as metal. If the most amount is silver, then it's going to be considered as silver. Now, another thing is the cash amount. So the cash amount, we are going to consider the nisab of silver in it. Let's say a person has $1,000 only, right? So this $1,000, it doesn't reach the amount of nisab of gold, because gold nisab is $4,000, right? More than $4,000. So, but we are going to consider then if we consider the amount of gold, then there will be no zakat upon him. But if we consider the amount of silver, the amount of the nisab of silver, then there will be zakat on him, because the amount of nisab through silver is $250. So there will be zakat upon him, right? So why we always consider the nisab of silver, not this nisab of gold? Because there is huge benefit for the poor people in it. Because if we consider the nisab of gold, then whole lot of people will not be eligible to pay zakat, will not be obliged to pay zakat. So poor people will receive less. So if we consider the nisab of silver, then a lot of people are going to become sahib nisab and going to be obliged to pay zakat. So there is huge benefit for poor people. That's why we consider the nisab of silver. Okay. We have we considered this already. Now one more thing today, let's say just covered, we can cover today quickly, is the first restriction we covered, that a person's commodity has to be business merchandise or gold or silver or cash. So we covered that in detail. Now the second restriction is it's very easy, quickly we can understand. The second restriction we covered briefly was that the wealth and the commodity a person has to be earned with a halal resource, with a permissible resource, not with a prohibited resource. So there is some detail in it. There are three kinds of wealth. One is that wealth which is earned with earned totally with impermissible resource. That is one kind. Second kind is that a person has a commodity or wealth which he has some of it he has earned with a permissible resource, and some of it he has earned with an impermissible resource. But in this second situation, second kind, he is able to differentiate between what was permissible and what was impermissible. Now the third kind is that a person has mixed wealth. Some of it is permissible, some of it is impermissible, and at the same time he is not able to differentiate between the two. So these are the three kinds of wealth. So if it's pure haram, if it's pure impermissible wealth, a person has earned it with a pure impermissible, all the wealth he has is purely impermissible earning, then there will be no zakat upon it, and this person has to pay this thing back to the real owner. Okay. This is the hukum. Now second kind is that we said some of it was impermissible, some of it was permissible, and this person is able to differentiate between the two, what is permissible, what is impermissible. Then what will be the hukum? That he has to pay zakat only on the permissible wealth he has. The impermissible wealth he has, there will be no zakat upon it, and he should, if he is able to return it back to the real owner, he should return it back to the real owner. If he is not able to return it back to the real owner, then he should just give that whole amount which was earned in permissible manner. He should give it away as a charity to some poor people without having an intention of earning reward on it, right? Because there is no reward on haram, that haram money you have earned and you give it as charity. So you should not make intention of reward on it. Now the last one is that a person has halal income also, and he has haram income also. He has halal earning also, haram, impermissible, permissible, mixed earnings, and he is not able to differentiate between the two. They are mixed. So now in that situation, the whole thing, upon the whole thing, zakat is going to be considered compulsory. The whole thing has to be calculated in zakat. Now, the reason why on haram earnings there is no zakat, because that haram, the impermissible resource from which a person has earned something, don't even enter in his ownership. So let's say I steal something from someone and I added that stolen thing into my ownership. It doesn't, it's just me having it in my custody doesn't make me the owner of it. So if I'm not owner of something, I'm not obliged to pay zakat on it. So the only thing I'm obliged to do is return this thing back to the real owner. Now, but when I earn something impermissibly and I mix it with my wealth and I'm not able to differentiate it, so what ulama has written in this situation, that whole thing is going to be calculated in zakat and the zakat needs to be paid, but it doesn't mean that he's gonna get reward on that haram earning zakat. He's not gonna get the reward. But so there are two things needs to be keep in mind. One thing is that a person, if he doesn't pay zakat, he gets punished. So there is a punishment on not paying zakat, and there is a reward on paying zakat. So there are two different things. So in this situation, this person, if we are asking him to pay zakat and we are telling him that you're not gonna get reward on it, so why he should pay zakat? Because even though he is not paying, he's not getting the reward on paying zakat, but he is not going to be punished on this of not paying zakat. So this is the only benefit he will get, that he is not going to get reward on paying zakat on this haram earning, but he still at the same time he is not going to be punished of not paying zakat. So that's why he should pay zakat. But the real he is still going to be punished on that separate sin of earning it in an illegal way. So this was the detail in that amount. The second restriction we learned that the zakat has to be earned with the permissible manner. So inshallah we'll continue and we'll finish all the restrictions in the upcoming sessions, inshallah. Subhana rabbika.